Amad Diallo is lighting up the Championship with Sunderland. And Sunderland are firmly in the mix for a playoff spot this season, in part down to the goals and performances of our young Toney. Amad's had a very influential role in Sunderland's bid for a top 6 finish after scoring 7 league goals in 21 games, only 14 starts with that. Fresh off being named Sunderland's Player of the Month, he looks determined to keep racking up the awards and the performances. Recently played against Middlesbrough and he was an absolute force, heavily influential and a danger throughout the game. He played in a central attacking role for Sunderland, a position that he has seemed to thrive in. And he got a man of the match performance. And in that, he had 100% of his long balls completed, a 97% pass accuracy, 93 touches, 73 passes completed, 4 dribbles completed, 3 key passes, 2 clearances, and 1 cross. After the game, Michael Carrick had the following to say. He is a terrific footballer and seems to have jumped up a level from the start of the season. His performances have improved and he is a threat. He is a talented player, really smooth on the ball and has lovely feet for how he takes the ball. He's sharp, has injection and sees space very well. Obviously I know him and I've watched him very closely. It's not easy to stop because he's one of the better players. His ability to play both on the wing and in the centre could be very useful for any manager. That sort of versatility is always in demand, and someone especially lacking reliable options could do with a backup to Bruno and perhaps competition on the right-hand side, as well as maybe even cover for Eriksen, especially during Van der Beek's injury. His loan spell might be a key part of his development, and it seems it's doing wonders at the moment to get the best out of him and perhaps even keep him in a central area where we can best utilise some of the traits that he's got. He's got tight ball control. He's got an extremely low centre of gravity and elusiveness. The technical ability is there. He's skillful. And he's got vision and cleverness to add into his game as well. Amad is using his time in the Championship to sharpen up his game and to prove what he can do in English football, namely coping physically. And he's getting better and better as the season goes on, and it's not really showing any sign of slowing down. Then we've got the Antony question. The right wing is a huge problem. Antony hasn't had the immediate impact that we was hoping for or perhaps even expected. Seems to lack power and dynamism. It's a little bit predictable. The end product has been questionable, and the lack of competition for him is not doing him any favours whatsoever. Alexsander is nowhere near that level, and even though Sancho could be, he's got issues off the field that he's trying to deal with as well. Now, Diallo has had his doubters, myself included, especially with how poor he was at Rangers. And if you're struggling to get into a Rangers side and sitting on the bench most of the time for a team in the Scottish Prem, you've got no right being a Manchester United player. But what he's doing in the Championship makes you take notice. Is he coming of age, or is it just a case of him finding his level? He flattered to deceive in a United shirt. Let's have it right. After a big money move on a largely unproven young talent, United invested in potential and we were eager to see it. But this has been a quite fruitful correlation. The translation of a Championship player to the Premier League has proved pretty successful, and there's a lot of names that have done well. Jack Grealish, perhaps one of the best examples. Ivan Toney, Mitrovic, the likes of Jude Bellingham. Players that can perform in the Championship typically are able to perform at the next level. But the one thing that I haven't necessarily seen, and this actually includes Jack Grealish, is when a player comes into the Premier League, typically from the Championship, they perform typically at the clubs that got them up. You haven't really seen anyone that performed in the Championship translate that to performing at the top level. And I would include Jack Grealish in that as well. His performances have been okay. But have you seen Jack Grealish get a grip of a game the same way that he did in an Aston Villa shirt? Because you haven't. Now, as I said, these players have managed to perform, but they've performed and succeeded at middle of the road Championship or bottom half Premier League teams. You think Ivan, Toney and Mitrovic, regardless of current position, they're not necessarily going and signing and performing for your City, your Arsenal, your United, or even your Tottenhams or your Chelsea. That's a step that we still have to see. Now, we did see that with Reece James. And that's where there's been some pretty successful loans. The likes of Mason Mount was sent out on loan, performed, and came back into the league. The Championship is an excellent proving ground. And I think it's far more relatable what goes on there than the Scottish Prem by a long stretch. I think the best thing for Amad, as much as we're all impatient, would be to see the season out, see where he finishes. Can he finish on 12, 13, 14, 15 goals? Performances at the moment suggest he absolutely could do. But then reassess him in the summer. As much as we need competition now for Antony, the development of the player, I think, has to come first in this instance. He is an exciting talent, and he's absolutely levelled up, like Michael Carrick said from last season, where he was poor at Rangers. Something that might have clicked with him. He might be playing in the right system, but I think his role within the team, he isn't just playing on the right wing. And I think people need to remember that when they're looking at whether or not he could be a direct replacement or competition for Antony. I think he's still got a little bit more to prove. But if he does it, then yeah, sweet. Best thing that could possibly happen for Manchester United is to have competition for players and people pushing based on performance. It's the best thing ever. Let me know your thoughts. Do we keep him at Sunderland or do we bring him back? See you in the next one. Wout Weghorst's got a certain particular set of skills which will benefit us as a team, but no one's calling him an absolute goal machine. No one's saying that this is the man that will fire Manchester United to a title. He's just a bit of a stopgap until we get a first-choice striker in. And he maybe even be a good off-the-bench or rotation option if we kept hold of him. But United have got to identify that big number 9. Who's going to be the guy? And I think long-term, real long-term, you're looking at someone 23, 24, 25. We don't want someone who's 35. We've done that a couple of times. Zlatan, Cavani, Ronaldo. Hasn't really worked out. But there might be a middle ground. And in that middle ground, there can be someone that's at least a little bit more. Not every signing needs to be a 12-year signing. You might have someone in the Cantona mould that sticks around for 4 or 5 years. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.